Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Now, this is part 3 to a multi-part story. For this video to make sense, please watch the previous parts, which are linked in the description and the comments. In update number 9, OP said the following. Update, life just gets better. Went to Jane's place last night. When I arrived, she opened her door with purse in hand and said, let's go. Her neighbor was ready with his rear car door open and we got in. I'd never met him, but I know he and his wife have been Jane's neighbors for years, and Jane sometimes watched their kids for them. They are a much younger couple. I tried to ask where we were going and she shushed me and said, you'll see. We drove to the baseball stadium. I used to love to attend baseball games but hadn't gone in many years. She had some great seats reserved down in the box area for me and her neighbor. I guess it pays to have contacts in the event business. Her neighbor wasn't just our chauffeur, he was also our attendant and got us drinks and ballpark dogs and souvenirs, and he knew baseball and the players, and we all bantered throughout the game. I loved it. When the game was over, he brought the car around and picked us up. I think it takes a special pass to do that. We rode in the back seat again and even snuggled a little on the way home. When we got back inside Jane's place, he invited his wife over and we all had a nice drink together. Good people, and I'm glad they are living there next to Jane. When her neighbors left, I stayed for a bit. I was anxious to spring the possible scamping trip idea on her, but the subject of talking to the ex-lady friends came up first. I told her that they were already notified, or one was, and I'm sure the other will know soon. She seemed pleased. She handed me a folded sheet of paper and said she had written down her thoughts about boundaries and I could read it later. I then asked her what she thinks about pull-behind campers. She looked confused and I then asked if she would like to take a camper trip with me, maybe out west, maybe out east, or wherever. I expected a reaction, but not this. She said, "Are you serious?" When I nodded, she burst up from her side of the couch and practically attacked me with hugs. Yes, yes, yes. When can we go? When can she see the camper? Does it have a bathroom? I showed her what a 16 scamp looks like on my phone, and we settled down and started talking about logistics, and she ran and grabbed her Rand McNally, and we started debating various destinations. She was so excited. We discussed traveling daily versus finding a good site and staying for several days at a time. Does it have a stove, or will we cook outside? Does it have a refrigerator? She didn't ask how many beds. It got pretty late, so I agreed to stay in her spare room for the night. I called my nearest neighbor and had him check on Jerry. He works a late shift and is a late night guy. I woke this morning in her spare room to the smell of breakfast cooking. I could get used to this. She had maps all over the table with things circled and was excited about the trip. I knew she would plan the whole thing when we decide where we're going. Love this woman. Females are even more attractive when they're so happy and full of life. Supposed to be a nice day today, so she's coming over this afternoon for a ride on the Harley. Nothing scary, just a nice calm ride on some tame back roads to get her used to it. I know an ice cream and custard shop just a short ride away. Also, when I got home and changed clothes, I remembered to read the piece of paper she gave me last night about our boundaries with others. All it said was, I trust you and you can trust me. Wow, that's better than any list of boundaries and even more effective. I called her about it and she said she had thought a lot about lists of do's and don'ts and it got far too tedious and unnecessary. She said when I had told her previously, it was mostly just common sense. It struck a chord with her. I can still remember my dad saying, "You're a good boy, we trust you," each time before I went out as a teenager. That was more effective than monitoring or warnings or anything else to stay away from bad things. He was a very wise man. I'm going to suggest we take the camper on a local 1 or 2 night trial run before finalizing our plans and heading off cross country. Being able to share these moments with you guys lets me relive them by trying to describe properly. Once or twice, I've caught myself thinking, can't wait to tell you guys when something cool is happening. I'm not sure if that's healthy, but thanks. In update 10, OP said the following. Update. Well, Jane came over this afternoon and I had the Harley ready. I gave her a new helmet and it actually fit. I told her all about the Harley and what does what and what to expect, hoping to lower her fears. I also made sure she knew we weren't going to do anything scary or risky and we could stop or turn back anytime she wanted. We took off and headed out on the country roads nice and slow. She was a little apprehensive at first, but by the time we got to the custard place, she was pretty good. Turns out there were several young couples there on crotch rockets, and Jane ended ended up talking to some of the girls for over 30 minutes. Not sure what they talked about, but I assume it mostly had to do with riding on motorcycles. Some of them left when we did and rode with us for a few miles, and Jane seemed more relaxed and even pointed out some nice scenery. By the time we got home, I was getting a little more aggressive on the curves and she was actually giggling. It was a huge success. When back at my place, we discussed when we were going to reschedule the Top Gun movie, and I said that I have a couple of friends that would like to see it too, along with their wives. Jane said that she also knew a lady that wanted to see it, but didn't want to go by herself. We're going to go this Friday, and I'm going to call my analyst friend to see if he wants to go with our group too. Jane thought that would be a great idea. She's a matchmaker. We talked more about our trip, and she has some relatives near Reno, Nevada. Carson, she hasn't seen for years. I knew them and liked them. We're thinking Rocky Mountain National Park, Yosemite National Park, and maybe Sequoia National Park too. We're heading over to my brother's tomorrow to look at the Scamp camper. We'll see how well Jane likes it when she sees how small it is, although it is much better than a tent. Things are moving fast, but it all seems good. In update 11, OP said, Jane and I watched 2 of the grandkids at her place yesterday till late afternoon. Great fun. We both love being with them, even though I've seen the same animated movies and played the same games with them dozens of times by now. They are changing month to month, growing up fast. We went over to my brother's to see the camper afterwards. I think Jane thought it would be bigger, but she was still excited. When my brother and his wife went back to the house to get some paperwork, Jane looked at me and asked, just one bed? I shrugged and said, looks like it. She smiled big and said, I'm good with that, are you? I just said, we'll make it work. Of course, the camper was loaded with all the options. It even has a tiny shower in the bathroom, but we decided we would probably stay at a hotel every few days to shower instead. We lay on the bed to make sure it was long enough for me, it is, but she was practically giddy just lying there. She kept saying, this is going to be so great. We hitched it to my pickup and checked the lights out, and I'm going to keep it in the shed at my place until we leave. Maybe we'll stay in it a couple of nights before leaving so we can determine the things we'll need while still local. Jane has already bought several items just for the trip. I have an appointment Tuesday evening to go visit one of the lady friends, the Wedding Crasher gal. She will be getting a new laptop that day and wants me to help her back up and transfer all her data and set up her applications on the new computer and get it to talk with her internet, etc. I've done this before, but usually with her saying, since you're here. I know that sounds like payment for services, but it never felt like that. I asked her if Jane could come too, and she said that would be great. She would make snacks or dinner or whatever we wanted. I asked Jane, and she said yes, of course. I think this kind of thing with my lady friends is going to work out okay. I'd like them to become Jane's friends too, but maybe that's asking too much. I'm a bit apprehensive about sleeping in the same bed as Jane, not sure why. When I was a young man dating, I would have moved heaven and earth to be in this situation, but now I'm just a bit nervous. That's probably a good thing. Then in update number 12, OP said, went to one of my ex-lady friends' place this evening to give some computer help. I was a little apprehensive, but it went well. Jane came with me, and the lady friend had one of her male friends there too. He wanted to pick up some technical pointers on computers and she wanted him to learn, probably to replace me. In any case, he's bright and seems a good guy. I like him. Also, him being there kept anyone from feeling like a third wheel. Took a few hours and we had sandwiches and drinks and it was relaxed. Jane seemed good, but on the way home, she said, she's very pretty and smart, isn't she? I thought for a moment, then said, yes, but she doesn't compare to you. Must have been the right words, cause she leaned over and put her head on my shoulder. I think she was smiling. Feels like another hurdle crossed. Menopause. Until recently, I had not really cared about menopause or midlife crisis or how that could have played into our divorce. Now it seems more important and I wanted to know, so I've been doing some research. Turns out there is an actual term called the gray divorce. Well over 60% of divorces during menopausal years are initiated by the wife, and that doesn't count the divorces initiated by the husbands because of emotional distress caused by the wife's emotional changes. Levels of oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone, are lowered during menopause because it's no longer needed for raising the family unit, and some doctors claim that the lack of oxytocin changes a woman's thinking from a we mindset to a me mindset. Also, their identity has been deeply intertwined with that of their spouse and family, and they perceive themselves as just a part of a unit with little control as opposed to an authentic individual, and their need to break out can become intense. When we're younger, children and careers make it easy to focus on common goals. Reaching the ends of our careers, plus empty nest, plus lack of oxytocin all combined puts everything up for grabs. Is my life over? Can I ever be me again? One expert says that some people, especially midlife women, may be happy but just don't feel happy, so they crave a change. Another says that this is exacerbated by all the social media and the new cultural expectations about women. They cannot be happy or have value unless they are independent. Are these theories correct? Who knows? But several of these symptoms and Jane's actions during that time do match up. Makes me wonder, and maybe I'll ask her about that sometime. In update 13, OP said the following. Well, Jane and I spent the night in the Scamp camper last night. Things went pretty good. This was planned before she came, so I already had the camper set up back by the woods 100 yards or so away from the buildings. No electricity except the RV battery, which was plenty for lights and fans and USB phone chargers and water pump. Nights are still comfortable here, so no air conditioning is needed, and with the windows open, the honeysuckle smells good this time of year. After a few drinks and snacks on the patio, we finally retired out to the camper. I know we should have discussed cohabitating first, but we didn't, and I didn't have the guts or even know how to bring it up. We went into the camper, brushed our teeth, washed up a little, and then got ready for bed. I was nervous. She already had her summer bedclothes on under her clothes, and I kept my shirt and boxers on, so there was no nudity getting ready. However, watching her, I was attracted to her physically, and it was obvious by the time she crawled in beside me. I think she noticed, and I'm pretty sure that pleased her. We turned out the light and lay there adjusting the blankets for a bit and saying our goodnights, and she eventually started rubbing my leg with her foot. It felt nice, but I finally said, I don't think I'm ready for that. She said, that's okay. Remember all the times I said that to you when we were dating? What a quick-witted lady. I smiled at her and rolled over, a little embarrassed in my state. She cuddled up and spooned behind me and said, this is good too. For some reason, the thought popped into my head of a phrase me and my buddies used to say as teenagers, the only thing that would turn my stomach is a pair of warm boobs in my back. I chuckled slightly, couldn't help it, and she asked, what? I told her, and after a couple of moments, she got it and giggled and said, we'll see about that, and snuggled a little tighter. We both got to laughing and couldn't stop. The tension dissolved. We tossed and turned some throughout the night and had to untangle ourselves from the covers once, but pretty good for two people who are used to sleeping alone. I woke up first and put some coffee on to perk. When she woke, I was looking at her and she smiled and stretched and I just wanted to grab her, but I controlled myself and just said, good morning, gorgeous, which is cheesy, but I used to say that. I asked her if I snored because I recall her gently pushing on my shoulder sometime during the night. She said it was not snoring, but more like loud breathing. Is there a difference? And she said she didn't want to wake me, but just to make me shift slightly, and it worked. She asked if she snored, and I said no, but you talk in your sleep. She was surprised and a little concerned, but I added that it was just some mumbling and nothing discernible. I had stocked the little fridge with some breakfast supplies, so we cooked a small breakfast in the camper just to prove we could. We converted the bed into the dinette table configuration and ate inside also. I had stocked champagne and orange juice and made us mimosas to celebrate. She was happy, so was I. Yes, I think we can live in the camper for a trip, even in poor weather. It does have limited space, but that's part of the fun. Going out with Jane and a group of friends to finally see the new Top Gun movie this afternoon, then Jane is coming over again to spend another trial run night in the camper. Her idea. Too much too fast? As John Goodman said in the movie Always, there's only ever been two kinds, flash fires where there's all flame and they burn themselves out and leave nothing, then there's the long burn. Even when you think it's out, it's still warm to the touch. Are we that long burn? With one night down and another happening tonight, I'm pretty pumped about our trip. We canceled our dinner theater reservation and some other engagements, so we're getting ourselves footloose and fancy free. Our kids are very supportive. I had promised myself and you guys to keep it slow and steady, but after last night and this morning, I'm not sure how long I can maintain that. I want her to know that I'm committed to her, but I don't want to seem needy or become a beta like I was 12 years ago. It's not a good look for a man and doesn't feel good either. We've got something good going here. Would intimacy change that? I don't want to mess this up. In update number 14, OP said, went to see the new Top Gun movie yesterday afternoon. Wow, haven't been to a newer movie theater in years. Very cool. After the movie, we all went to Jane's place for drinks and to debrief about the film. Her place was nearby. One of my friends is also a private pilot, and I was anxious to hear everyone's opinion. Thumbs up all around. If you remember, it's entertainment and not a documentary. Also, I think I overheard my analyst friend and Jane's friend discussing dinner, I don't know when, maybe that same evening. While we were at Jane's place, her doorbell rang and she went to get it. I could see from my spot on the deck through the house and to the front door. A man stood there, an attractive younger man. She beamed at him and spoke a few words, then she went to get something and gave him a folder. They spoke and hugged, and she closed the door and came back out to the deck as if nothing had happened. I felt shaken and jealous, and my mind was racing. Guess I went a little possessive caveman there. Who was this man, and why was he at her door? They seemed to be so familiar and friendly. Why didn't she mention him when she returned? Is she hiding something? I didn't say anything, but would have to ask her later. When we got to my place and we sat on the patio snacking and waiting until bedtime to go to the camper, she said, "Okay, what's wrong? You haven't been yourself since the movie?" I started to respond and realized I was shaken more than I thought. Me. So who was that man? Her. What man? Me. The one you hugged in your doorway today. Her. Oh, that. Then she proceeded to tell me how he worked for her old company, and she was his mentor for years, and she had written up a recommendation and some contacts for him for a job at a larger company in a different city. He came by to pick them up and was very appreciative, and they both knew they probably wouldn't see each other again. So he thanked her for everything and said goodbye. She apologized and said it didn't even occur to her what that might look like to someone else, especially me. I felt silly, but OMG, is this what she feels when I interact with a lady friend? Even when completely innocent? I asked her about my female friends and told her I never want to put her through the feelings I experienced today. I don't need female friends. She says not to worry, we'll figure it out. I told her I was sorry for jumping to conclusions and being so jealous. She said it's actually sort of flattering and makes her feel special. Then poking her finger into my chest with each word, she said, "I don't want anyone but you. Got that, mister?" "Yes, ma'am." She always knows just what to say. We went to the camper and got ready just like last night. I was not nervous this time. While lying there in the dark, she said she was a little sad, that my first thought was that she had something going with someone else, but she knows she caused this years ago. We talked about trust, and I talked about the pain of thinking I wasn't good enough, and it got pretty emotional there for a while. We agreed to always say when something is bothering us, no matter how small or how personal. We talked about all kinds of things for an hour or two. The more we talked, the more I realized that nearly all of the drama we've had since our initial meeting in January has been because of me, not her. During our marriage, I was always the calm, stable one. Now Jane is stable, and my emotions seem all over the place. I mentioned this to her, and she says she loved the old me, but likes the new me too, because we can talk about anything. We fell asleep snuggling again and repeated our morning routine like before. I'm taking her to a retirement party tonight that may run pretty late, but Jane asked if we could stay in the camper again tomorrow night. Things are good, and I don't feel our relationship is so fragile anymore. Haven't set a departure date for our trip yet, but we're getting it all planned out. I'm okay with just taking off and seeing where the road takes us, but I know that would drive Jane crazy. Edit: this is just a small update and not really worth a separate post. We went to the retirement party last night and really enjoyed ourselves, lots of old friends, and everyone seemed happy to see us together. Early on, one of my ex-lady friends, XLF, came up to Jane and me and introduced herself to Jane, but said nothing to me. I didn't even know this XLF knew the retiring lady. The XLF and Jane exchanged pleasantries, and then she told Jane, "Glad to see you're back with your husband. He's a fun guy." Like I wasn't even standing there. Jane said, "Yes, I'm a lucky woman." After the XLF walked away, I asked Jane what that was all about and did it bother her. She said, "Nope, I have you," and she doesn't. Don't worry about it. Great party. We stayed overnight at her place in her bed and snuggled like we did in the camper. All is good. In update 15, OP said, "Well, I proposed to Jane last night on my patio before we went to the camper for the night. I went down on one knee and simply asked if she would marry me. No prelude or ring or anything other than having some appropriate background music playing. She sat there stunned for a moment, then stared at me and realized that I was serious. She lunged forward and literally knocked me over. Ouch, I have a sore and bruised shoulder to show for it, but it's worth it. She was kissing my face all over, and of course, Jerry, my lab, joined in with us. She never did say yes, but I got the idea. We got ourselves up and brushed off, and she said that was the last thing she ever expected tonight. But dreams really do come true. If you could have anything you wanted type of thing. She was so excited that she was practically vibrating. She mentioned calling the kids, but I said we need to figure out some logistics first. I told her about getting married in Nevada during the trip, and I wanted her but wanted to wait until we were married again, and she said, okay, but I want you bad. Made me feel good. I do love this woman. I know she will insist on planning the when and where and everything else. After an hour or so of talking and planning and settling down, we decided to call the kids. On speakerphone, we called daughter first. Daughter was so happy she cried. I took the phone off speaker and handed it to Jane so she could talk to daughter in private. Jane was in tears when they hung up, but all smiles. We then called son. He was more reserved but said, Dad, you and Mom belong together. I'm happy for you guys. I said thanks, son, that his blessing was all I needed. He even offered to travel to Nevada to stand up with me if I wanted. We both thanked him but said that it wasn't necessary. I took the phone off speaker again and handed it to Jane to talk to my son. Jane was smiling when they hung up, so I think all is well. Everything feels perfect, no doubts, no regrets, and Jane is walking on air. Me too. Looks like we're leaving on Thursday, 3 days from now. Son and daughter texted and want to bring champagne Wednesday evening to celebrate and see us off. I think my brother and his wife may come also if his wife feels up to it. Still soaking it all in, but holy cow, how can I be so blessed? Where will we live when we get back? How will our lives change? We agreed we would discuss all this in detail during the trip. I literally can't wait to marry this woman. I'd leave tomorrow if we could. Edit, yes, she still has her wedding ring set and I have my old wedding band, so we're all set there. Then in the 16th update, OP said the following. We leave tomorrow morning. Jane had too much champagne and is very happy celebrating and is already in bed. I'm sitting here without my dog, but with a dram of good scotch, contemplating my situation. I can't imagine better. The camper is all hooked up and serviced. I've got my Garmin and Jane has her big Rand McNally map book all marked up. The kids visited us with the grandkids this evening to see us off with champagne and hugs for Grandpa and Grandma. Son needed to come get Jerry anyway. The grandkids were all excited too. They wanted to know why we had to go far away to get married. Could they come too? I told them that someday when they are bigger, Grandma and I will rent a large motorhome and take them somewhere for a long weekend, camping and fishing and maybe swimming. They made me pinky promise. Actually, after describing it to them, I'm looking forward to that day as much as they are. Of course, Jane and her cousin in Carson, Nevada have been planning and scheming about the visit and the wedding. They've already made reservations at a local pub for our bachelor-bachelorette party combined, a small chapel for the wedding, a reception with cake in their home, and the honeymoon suite for the wedding night. Of course they did. The cousin's husband is a good guy and fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing them and catching up. They are both going to stand up with us, and their daughter is going to be the photographer. It's all more complicated than I first envisioned, but hey, this is the last time we're getting married. I do tease Jane about signs I should watch for if she should start to turn into a bridezilla. Scotch is the cure, not for her, for me. She just smiles and rolls her eyes. After the kids left, Jane and I did discuss some things, with her head on my sore shoulder. I simply asked her where she would like us to live when we get back. She seemed surprised and impressed that I asked. She said, right here, of course. She said that her condo never seemed like home, not really. Also, she loves my place and it's so peaceful and she has no need to be downtown anymore anyway. And the grandkids love it here and she'd like to put out a garden and on and on. She concluded, this is the perfect place for us. How cool is that? I'm not good at posting via phone, so won't be posting for long spaces while gone. Just as well as this should not become a boring travel log. Maybe a short note when something important happens like we're married. Jane will have her laptop, but I don't want to use it for Reddit. Not that I would mind her reading my posts and your comments, not trying to hide anything, but it's become a very personal thing for me. Angel's Envy is purchased and secretly tucked away for our wedding night. Update 17 is really short, so I will be combining it with Update 18. Stopped en route at a medical clinic for shoulder, partial dislocation, shot, meds, better now. Jane, very sorry, all good. We arrived back home this morning from our camper trip out west. Good to be home. My place is now our home. We were married last Thursday and the wedding went perfectly. Discussed lots of details during our trip. Some things got simpler and some got more complicated, like if I should add her name to my titled assets or establish a trust for our combined assets and what to do with her condo. My home is like a bachelor pad, and I asked if she had any changes in mind. She said no, not if I like it that way. I told her that I wanted her to put her personal touch on things and decorate, and we'll work out what items we should move in from her place, and I'm open to rearranging or whatever. She did hint at setting up her home office space in my den, and I'm fine with that because it's not much more than a storage room right now anyway. She smiled and promised not to touch my basement, but I think she could probably improve that too, so I wouldn't mind. We even talked about NFL game watching nights. It's always only been guys. Would having women there change the atmosphere and dynamic? I'll have to give that some thought, as we sometimes get a little crude and act like 12-year-olds. That's part of the fun, letting our hair down so to speak and being unguarded. The biggest surprise was our kids and a few of our friends and neighbors prepared a reception for us for this afternoon, not just to celebrate our marriage, but also as a belated Father's Day. Son and neighbor and son-in-law had the place all groomed, and the daughter and daughter-in-law organized everything, including food and drink and decorations. What a wonderful homecoming. It was a surprise to me, but I later learned that Jane had been talking with their daughter the last few days and made sure we got home on the correct day and on time. I have the best family, friends, and neighbors. Didn't get a count, but if you include everyone's kids, I'll bet nearly 100 people came and went throughout the afternoon, more than they expected. I was moved, and so was Jane. We all mingled and talked and laughed, and some gave toasts. My kids, with some financial help from Jane, had traded in my old Grasshopper mower on a new model with all the comforts and bells and whistles, including a canopy. Happy Father's Day. The Grasshopper dealer is a friend, and he knew exactly what I would like. I can't wait to use it, but everything's already mowed right now. Late in the evening, Jane had a bit too much to drink on an empty stomach and was professing her love for me to anyone who would listen. Nothing too personal or embarrassing, but not like her in public. So daughter helped me put her to bed. As daughter and I were putting Jane down, she mentioned she wanted to read my story on Reddit. I told Jane about Reddit during our trip. The daughter gave me an inquisitive look, so now daughter knows too, sort of. Jane is sleeping, and I'm here posting with Jerry, my lab, on my feet. This day is one of the best, ranking right up there with the days our kids and grandkids were born. Everyone wanted to help clean up and unpack, but I sent them all home and said we'll do it tomorrow. Right now, I'm buzzed and as happy as I can stand. Jane is beautiful and smart, and I love her. Did I mention that? She's now my wife. I know we are still in the honeymoon phase, and my goal is to keep it that way. My shoulder is pretty much back to normal. Good night. Once more, this is just the third part of this story. For most of you watching this, the next part should be live now, which will be linked in the description and the comments.